Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the podcast. I've got an absolute fucking legend. What a gentleman, and someone that I've grown a lot on because of the alignment that we have. We're very passionate about very similar topics, and I had the pleasure of being on his podcast a couple of weeks ago. I'm speaking with Ryan McCarthy, life strategist, helping people maximize peak performance without while eliminating burnout. He is the host of the One Talk podcast and a mental health advocate. He's passionate about mental health. So am I, and I'm very grateful to have you on my podcast today, brother. How are you today?
Hey, brother. I am great. Thank you. And yeah, thanks for that intro. That was nice. And I appreciate you having me on.
Man, let's rip into it. I always like to dive into people's stories because people can relate to people's stories, right? It's like people don't necessarily want to see all the achievements. They want to see all the challenges that they go through because some people don't believe things are possible. But when you can hear that someone has gone through things and worse things than you, or the same things as you, it's just a lot to relate to. And there's obviously so much power in people's stories. So I know you've given me a snippet of it, man, but I'd love for you to share with me and my audience. What's your story, brother? How have you come to be the man that you are today? And take that however you want to take it.
Yeah, sweet. I just want to start with, yeah, I agree with in terms of story and listening to people's stories. I think it's very empowering for other people to listen to, especially rather they've got a family or a friend or a loved one who's in the current situation they're listening to, or they are themselves currently in that situation. And it gives that inspiration that change can come, evolution can come. So 100% stories are important. And I'm glad, we can share these on something like a podcast. So diving into myself, my name is Ryan McCarthy. I'm 25 years old. At the moment, I am the founder and CEO of Mental Health Experience. I have my own business. But the reason why all this started was because I'm originally from Liverpool, England. I moved to Australia when I was like 8 or 9. So in 2005, I moved to Australia with my mom, my dad, my brother, and my sister. We moved to Adelaide, lived in Adelaide for 4 years up until 2009. And at that time in Adelaide, from 2005 to 2009, it was a big shift from me going from a place like Liverpool, England, to a place like Adelaide, like in terms of just hostility and just a whole different culture and lifestyle. Like someone saying good day to me on the street just felt so alienated to me. I was like, why is this person saying hello? And I thought it was like, he's having a go at me or something. But things like that took a little while to get used to. I started running the market in Adelaide. I was rebelling at the time. I was still only like 8 years old, and I was like graffitiing up my whole school with tags. I was stealing bikes, stealing scooters, and just living a bit reckless and just getting mixed in with some hectic people in the wrong crowds. But then after living in Adelaide for 4 years, we decided to move up to Queensland in 2009. So I would have been about 10 years old or maybe 11. But we moved up here in 2009. But then as soon as we moved up here, the family broke down. So my dad and my brother moved away. My sister stayed in Adelaide. And my mom stayed in Queensland with me. And then through this brought a lot of challenges because I felt like there was potentially a lack of guidance for myself, especially from a male role model or even just any role model per se. And I started going down the path of including myself with circles of people and large groups of circles of people that were doing things that were quite damaging in a sense to myself. It was. So at the age of 11, I started getting into drugs. I became addicted quite quickly. I knew that I became quite dependent on drugs from the age of 11. That led to me, going to school high on crack, smoking ice, doing loads of pills. I ended up getting expelled from school in year 11 as well, just because I wasn't showing up. I think in year 11, I probably went about in total maybe 4 weeks the whole year. I got kicked out at the end. And then once I left school, I decided to try and get a job. I was like, oh, maybe I'll try and do something with myself. Now I'm not at school. I only been about 16 at the time. I decided to do a chef apprenticeship, and I couldn't sustain that because when I was there for about 2 years, there was one day I went sober, and then my boss complained to the manager that I was high on some sort of drug. The one day I was sober. So that just kind of shows how deep in the depths I was in substance abuse. And then through that, just brought a lot more challenges. And I ended up getting sober at the age of 18, completely from all drugs. And from that age of 11 to 18, I don't really remember feeling too many emotions. I remember just being numb. The only really emotions I really felt was probably happiness and anger. probably the mixture of those two. Like I was happy because I felt like I was happy because I was out partying like 3-4 nights a week for many years, and I was around people who just quote unquote having a fun time. Now I was angry because of life and what I thought life did to me and that victim mentality that I had in that stage as well. But then once I turned 17, I remember I went to schoolies, even though I didn't graduate, but I still went. I went to schoolies, and this is when the turning point started to come into my consciousness that I needed to start to do something about my habits and my drug addiction, and knowing that I can't wait for someone to come and save me. Because the schoolies just talk about 10 pills a day. If no one knows, that's a lot. That's mixed with alcohol and other drugs, and slept bare minimum the whole week. I remember getting back, and I got back home after schoolies, I was about 60 kilos roughly. I was thin. I wasn't eating. My brain was scattered. I was getting like these head twitches. Like I would be sitting still and my head would be twitching for no reason. And at that point, I started to realize that I need to start getting the grip of my life and find out a way that I can overcome drug addiction. And the amount of different variations of drugs I was doing, I was like, it's going to be so hard to quit them all at once. So I tried to hone down on the one I did the most frequently, which was marijuana. And I decided if I quit marijuana but still abuse the rest, then that hopefully will give me the willpower to then keep continuing the journey of becoming sober. So at 17, a couple of months after schoolies, I quit marijuana completely. And then after that, there was about a 9-month period from quitting weed to quitting drugs completely. But that 9-month period, I just went completely hard in pills, like a lot of pills, rather MDMA or prescription pills, just anything I get my hands on. I was down to get going to work, not sleeping after a night of racking and stuff. But then at the end of that 9 months, on my 18th birthday, our apartment kind of got flagged in a sense, and it just some information got out there, and then the police were about to come up, and then from that night forward, I realized that I had to make a change, because I'm rather going to end up overdosing, I'm going to end up in jail, I'm going to end up dead, and I wasn't keen to keep pursuing that lifestyle. And I think that frightening moment of that weekend did push me further to have more willpower to be able to quit completely. Because then the weekend after my 18th, that's when I decided to just try to go sober completely. And then ever since now, I've been 7 years sober. But I believe quitting marijuana first is the thing that gave me the belief that I could quit any other drug, because I believe I was the most addicted to marijuana. But when I quit drugs, that's when the real challenges came in my life, because from the age of 11 till 18, my whole life was numb, and it was rather numb or happiness and partying and having a good time. But then from the ages of 18 to 20, where I was doing no drugs, and then all those emotions that were suppressed and numb finally came to the surface level, and I started to deal with things like depression, anxiety, suicide ideation, if you will. Getting to the point where my best friend would come over and I couldn't leave the room because I'd be shaking from anxiety, or I'd be like cripply depressed. I couldn't get out of bed. Like it felt like something was just, I felt like I had like 200 kilos of weight holding me down every single day. And it came to the point where a suicide ideation even planned out an attempt. But then it got to about 2 years after dealing with that mental health and being unemployed and sticking in my bedroom, that I realized that the amount I've already overcome by the age of 20 in terms of overcoming drug addiction, even though I got addicted at 11, like a lot of people don't get out of that loop. I was like, maybe I can overcome this challenge as well. Maybe I can overcome these mental health battles that I'm facing. So I was like, what can I do? I was like, all right, I'll go see a psychologist. Saw a psychologist maybe twice. It wasn't for me personally. I didn't relate with the person, and it just felt too formalized for me. So I decided, well, everything I've done up until this point in my life, I've completely got myself to and completely overcome everything by myself. So I was like, I need to find a way that I can make this work for me. So I signed up to a gym, even though I was about like 60 kilos, signed up to a gym. I just became addicted to the gym and exercising religiously. And then I just honed in on exercise like you wouldn't even believe. And then that's what helped me beat my anxiety, or like being like shaking around people, helped me get out of my bed every single day, started giving me a purpose. And then when I was in training in the gym, I was like, now I'm building confidence. I was like, I need to find something that's going to build a bit of purpose in my life. I need to do something that everyone told me that wasn't possible for me to do, and I'm going to go do it. and that was finishing year 12 from school. So I was like, I'm gonna go to TAFE and do year 12, because I was like, I've always been told my whole life I'm a fuck up and I'm never gonna succeed. And I was like, well, at least if I get my year 12 certificate. Oops, sorry, froze a bit there. I was like, yeah, as long as I get my year 12 certificate, at least then I can say I've achieved something, you know. So I went to TAFE, did year 12, and then while I was doing year 12 and TAFE, I picked a couple of classes, and one of them is psychology. I was like, this is a bit of a coincidence. I'm facing my own challenges. So I was studying psychology. I just fell in love with learning about the brain and why people feel this because of this and that because of that, and how certain things impact you, and like your thought processes, CBT, and all this. And I just became obsessed with learning about psychology. I remember I got too obsessed with learning about the mind that I stopped learning about my other subjects. So when I came to my psychology assignments, I just aced them. But when I came to science, I flunked it, because I just started honing in on this one thing. But I ended up completing the year 12 certificate. And then once I finished that year 12 at TAFE, I started to think, like, what can I do now as a starting point to create an impact on mental health? Maybe I can share my story. Maybe I can just give inspirational quotes, whoever it may be. So in June 2018, I would have been about 20 years old, 21 years old. I started Mental Health Experience, which is my Instagram page. And I started that just as a way to spread awareness on mental health, because I knew so many people that I grew up with that were struggling. I knew myself that was struggling as well. I was like, at least if I can share the little things that I know about myself, my story, and a little bit of knowledge that I've learned, then I might just help one person. If not, I'm definitely going to help myself. So yeah, from June 2018, I started posting on Instagram, just motivational stuff really. And then through having that page, a lady ended up messaging me on Mental Health Experience saying that, hey, I work at a residential mental health housing up in the Sunny Coast. Do you want to come and volunteer? I see that you're passionate about mental health. And this is only about 3 months after from starting that page. Now, first, it was that limiting beliefs of I'm not good enough, I'm not qualified. And then I decided not to do it. And I left it for about 4 weeks. And then I went to go for a job interview to do roofing. And the day before I was meant to start my job, I was at the gym, had a 20-kilo plate, dropped the plate on my foot, completely shattered my toe and a couple of toes. I was in the moon bit for 12 weeks, didn't get that job. And I was sitting there and I was like, well, maybe this is telling me something. Maybe I got to go spend my time going volunteering now. Maybe this is a sign from the universe, whoever it may be, pushing me towards that. So I was like, you know what? I may not believe that I'm worthy enough, but you've always got to start somewhere. So I messaged the lady back and I was like, look, I can come in tomorrow and volunteer. So yeah, cool. See you tomorrow. I started volunteering. I volunteered there for about 3 months, ended up getting hired. And then I just worked my way through the organizations, through multiple programs, a couple of promotions over about a 4-year period, working in multiple mental health programs through that organization. And along that journey of working that organization, I've also built Mental Health Experience, which is my personal brand where I run retreats, run events, run masterminds, run a lot of different things, and also started my own podcast. So the journey kind of started from there, and it's kind of evolutionized to where it is now.
Man, what a story. I didn't know. I knew snippets of it, and man, it's powerful. Like I truly believe that we become the people that we needed when we were at our lowest. And to go through what you've been through, to come out the other side, to not have it as an excuse to hold you back, to be able to be strong and powerful like you are, man. It's inspiring, man. So I'd love to just zoom in on, there's so many points I want to zoom in on, but probably just zoom on when you were kind of at that lowest point. You mentioned there was a couple points to turn it around. There was a turning point, I think, around the schoolies point. There was this turning point around giving up the weed, the marijuana. There was a point that you said, your words were, I had to make a change. I'd like to sort of zoom in there and go to who was Ryan back then, what was going through his head, and what was the catalyst for you to make the decision? Because the results come afterwards, right? Like when you decide to be fit and healthy, you don't just train once and it's done. It's the decision to then show up every day, to eat good food, to whatever you need to do. So I'd love to know kind of the journey, the internal journey that you went to making the decision to change and to better yourself. I'd love to hear your version of that.
Well, at the time when I quit the drugs and went into the gym, I was a very angry person. Like I was just lashing out over the tiniest things. Like the tiniest things, like I would just get so angry about. And that anger was something that I had within me probably since the day I was born, I believe, because I was always told by people around me that I was crazy and I was angry. And I always felt like I had to fulfill that in a subconscious way or unconscious way. And throughout my life, I was just this very angry person. And then when I started to decide that I need to change my life around, and that's when I started going to the gym, I realized that I need to find a way to channel my anger. And that was just using that energy to go to the gym and let it out at the gym and just drain myself from any anger every single day going there. But in saying that too, like it wasn't easy at all to get up and go to the gym because at the time I was still, like cripply depressed, if you will, if you want to use that terminology. It was just a lot of resilience and willpower that I had to put on myself and I had to find within myself to do it. And I realized I had to build more of a competitive nature within myself because I never had that around me. Like rather competitive nature I used to have was doing negative things, but I was like, I need someone who's going to be in my corner and push me. I'm like, well, I need to be that person for myself. So in days I just didn't want to go to the gym, I had to like keep reminding myself in my head and just convince myself. And like at times I was very brutal to myself. Like the words I would use to myself to get myself out of bed were harsh, but they were very necessary because I needed to hear those harsh words to be able to get out of bed and be able to go to the gym and start creating that change. So yeah, I believe it was that mixed with find the way to channel my anger.
So the gym was a catalyst for you to sort of continue the journey?
Yeah, definitely. And still to this day, like, because with gym, it helped me socialize with people who helped me get out the box. It helped me think of new perspectives. And then once I started going to the gym, I just then became obsessed learning about health as well and learning about exercise and all that type of stuff too. So it helped me put my focus to something that wasn't struggle. So it was being able to get out of my head and starting to do something that was a bit more purposeful.
Powerful, man. I'd love to know your take on labels. Like even the way you worded depression being quite a depressive state, crippling depression, I think you just said. What's your take on labels? I've got my beliefs around it, but I want to hear someone who's gone through a very extreme version of drugs at the age of 11 to everything that you shared within your story. What's your take on labels and for, I guess, your own sense? And then what would you say to someone who's listening to this who might have a label? What would you say to them?
The only reason I use the terms like depression, anxiety, crippling depression is just so people have a basic understanding of what I'm talking about. Because when it comes to labels, I don't believe you should label like who you are. And like, so say, if you feel depressed, you shouldn't label yourself as someone who's depressed. Because if you do that, you're going to embody that and then you're truly going to believe it, which then becomes your identity. And then you're going to feel like a depressed person. So the reason I use things, I say like I was depressed is just to give people like an understanding of where I was at. But in terms of labels, I don't believe you should ever label yourself. Like me, every single day I'm growing. So the person I was yesterday is different to the person I am today. So being able to label who I was yesterday doesn't relate with who I am today. Even though it's probably 99.99% the same person, there's still that 0.001% growth within that. And that happens every single day. So I guess you could use labels like resilience and time where you feel resilient, but I don't overall just put one big label on myself. And I think to the people listening to this too, don't narrow yourself down to a label either, because labels get sticky. And when they stick, you have to rip them off like a band-aid. So don't label yourself. I think it's just more so just working on yourself, focusing on yourself, understanding yourself and find that self-love and take that journey of understanding who you are rather than being so fixated on labeling who you are.
That's powerful, guys. Just go back and watch that again. Is there any, I'm going to go into tools soon, but just while we're on that topic, is there any exercises or things that mental exercises or physical write down things that you would say for people that may are currently subscribed to a label? They're currently, I am anxious, I am depressed, I am lazy, I am not good enough, I am whatever. So I'm a victim. So what would you say? Do you have any tools that you use or just things that you'd recommend for people to get out of that mindset of subscribing to a label?
Yeah, the thing I say to people is you got to do a brain dump. Like you've literally just get all your thoughts and just write them down as much as you can. Just keep getting them out. And the reason for the brain dump is to understand your beliefs and why you have your beliefs and why these beliefs become labels. Because once we understand where they come from, we then understand why we adopted them and rather they're helpful or unhelpful or harmful. So it's just being able to actually understand where these labels come from. Because most of the time, it's probably someone else said something to you when you're 6 years old. And then now, 30 years later, you're still sticking with that label because that one memory stuck. But even though that's not even you as a person, but that one time you just became so fixated on that label. So it's just being able to completely understand where it first came from. Because I believe once we understand where it came from, we can then change the perspective on why we interpret it that way. So 100%, it's just being able to get out your head and understand where it's come from.
Powerful, man. Can you go in? Can you zoom in on beliefs? I'm a big fan of beliefs, limiting beliefs, identifying, rewriting them. Can you zoom in on that and I guess educate for people that don't understand it what a limiting belief is and how you can challenge them? And just like you said, someone might have said something when you're 5, 6, 7 years old, and you've just held on to that, and now it's still holding you back in that whatever area of life. So, I guess what are limiting beliefs, and how can someone overcome them?
Limiting belief is anything that you have a true fixation on that holds you back in life. So let's just say you want to get rich, but you have a limiting belief that money's scary. Then guess what? You're not going to get rich. You got to be able to work on that limiting belief and understand why you think money's scary. Maybe it's because you grew up and you had parents who said you couldn't buy this because we have to save this week, or you've had in your own experience that I can't afford this. And then that's just a build-up effect that's ingraining that belief within you. So it's about changing. Like the way I use it with people I work with is like we've got a pyramid that we work within. At the bottom of the pyramid is language. Above the language is beliefs. No, sorry, it's language, then thoughts, then beliefs, then identity. So if you want to start changing your beliefs, it starts with the language that you use and the language that you also listen to. So one powerful thing I use is guided affirmations for a sense. So let's just say if I had a limiting belief that I'm scared of money or I don't deserve money, I will then listen to guided affirmations of abundance, wealth, and money. Or I'll myself record myself saying affirmations of money, success, and abundance, and then re-listen to them over like binaural beats per se. So that's the way I personally overcome limiting beliefs, is by changing the language that I use, because then that will change my beliefs. My beliefs will then form a new identity.
Beautiful, man. Powerful. Guys, this is gold right now. Question is, what is, I guess, daily or weekly or monthly habits or just actions that you do on a routine base to look after your mental health? Because it's I think some people have a bit of perception. It's like it's like brushing your teeth. It's like if you stop brushing your teeth get fucking dirty. It's like to have good mental health, you need to continue to do it. You don't just do one course or seminar or read a book and then you're good forever. It's a practice. Like you got to continue. It's like your body. If you stop training, you lose the muscle, you lose the body. So what is, like, I guess, daily, weekly, monthly practices that you do for yourself to maintain good mental health? Just take it from there.
The one thing I start with this is understanding the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind runs 95% of our life. So 95% of the time you're on autopilot. And if the 5% of my life I'm conscious, what am I doing throughout my 24 hours a day that's programming the 95% of my life to be able to autopilot me through this journey of life? So it's understanding that and then implementing the principles and skills and strategies into that concept to make sure that my mind is programmed to my destiny, which I'm building towards. So things that I use is the guided affirmations. For one, is because I'm programming my mind to believe certain beliefs. The next one will be breath work. I absolutely am a big admirer of breath work. I do it every single day. I don't do like the big deep sessions all the time. It's mainly things like 4-6-9 breathing. So if you're listening, 4-6-9 breathing is the concept of being able to reduce anxiety. It helps lower your blood pressure. It helps slow down your heart rate. It reduces stress, etc. Because if our exhale is longer than our inhale, then our heart rate slows down. So I do 4-6-9 breathing every single morning without a doubt, because I like to start my day with calming down my parasympathetic nervous system and letting my mind and body know that I'm the one in control today. And if I do that every single morning, I give myself that permission to be in control. So breath work for sure, the guided affirmations. I do meditation as well. I love listening to like binaural beats when I go to bed, because every single night before you go to bed and when you first wake up, you're in the theta brainwave state. And the theta brainwave state, we can adopt information up to 300% more than we usually do. So let's just say if you are struggling, like going back to limiting beliefs, if you struggle with a certain belief, try make that transition if you can in the theta brainwave state, because you're going to adopt whatever it is that you're learning or doing up to 300% more. So you're more going to be susceptible to adopt that in a shorter period of time, even though you want to do this as a journey throughout your life, but it's just a way that you can adopt this into your life. So being able to do that in the theta, and definitely exercise. So even to this day, like probably 70% of the time, I don't want to go to the gym, but I go anyway. Maybe 80% of the time, I don't want to go to the gym, but I just do it anyway. So I believe a big part of my life is doing a lot of what I don't want to do and still doing it. I believe, especially, I'm going to speak as a man more so here. I believe you got to do a lot of things that you don't want to do. Because if you only do things that you feel like doing in the moment, you're going to get too comfortable. Then you're going to start feeling the things like what depression is and anxiety is, and you're going to start feeling unmotivated, and that's going to be a killer. So for me, I do a lot of things I don't want to do and do them anyway, but it's being more strategical about it. It's not just saying like, I don't feel like sprinting 200 miles, but I'm going to do it. It's more so like, I know I love going to the gym. I don't want to go, but I'm going to do it anyway. Or I've been telling myself I want to go for a run. I don't want to do it, but I'm going to go do it anyway. It's just doing more things of that nature that I know that is going to add an overall benefit to my life.
Powerful stuff, man. I've got exercise, meditation, subconscious mind, understanding it, breath work, journaling. Oh, well, as that was more so from the affirmations from before. All beautiful stuff, brother. Beautiful, beautiful. I'm curious for yourself, man. You've had a colorful upbringing. You've had some challenging times. You've had experiences with drugs and people that probably reinforce that. You said you got around the wrong people, the wrong crowd. I'm curious for you, man, who or what really influenced you the most in your upbringing to become who you are today? Because I'm sure even though some things that hurt us the most, they generally give us the most amount of passion and purpose, right? So
yeah,
I'm curious for you, man, from all the ups and downs that you had when you were going through, man, who and what influenced you the most to be where you are today?
I said this in our last podcast that we did. It was Cursor, the rapper.
Oh,
So
yes.
yeah, because when I was 11 years old, that was when he first started making music, and he was a drug addict at that time, and so was I. So I just related with his music. But as he progressed through his career, and I started to grow up at the same time, he became sober, like around the same time I started to become sober. And I felt like I was taking that journey with him and like listening to his music all the time, listening to where he was and who he was to who he is now and who he's becoming was just a massive inspiration for me to keep building on myself and keep on that journey as well. And like even to this day, because Cursor is he's like successful and he's overcome like so much adversity. Like even listen to his music now, it's like a reflection of my life when I listen to it, because like I've overcome so much adversity and I've become the person I am today as well. So to be honest, it's been a lot of Cursor because like when I grew up, like all my family's in the UK, dad wasn't around, brother wasn't here. My sister was over in Adelaide as well. So when I grew up, I had like no family at all. So I didn't really have any guidance, anyone to look up to. So I think I put my focus more to music.
What has allowed you to overcome that adversity, man? Like for I've done or not so much podcasts with them, but I know a lot of people that they've broken with half of the amount of adversity you were exposed to. So I guess what are the main traits or actions or decisions or beliefs or whatever it is? What allowed you to overcome it, man, and not like you've broken the cycle. You're not for someone who got into it at 11 years old to be helping people to have the transition or evolution that you've got. It's very inspiring, man. So what's allowed you to, I guess, get out of, not let that adversity break you or keep you there, and you've been able to get to where you are?
Yeah, definitely. Because we're all human. We all have challenges, no matter how far we go in life.
Still there?
Oh yeah, I'm still here. Sorry, bro. My phone just started ringing.
Okay.
So the thing that helps me with adversity is that I always look at everything that happens in life. I always look at as that it's a challenge that is a question to me. So let's just say if something bad happens to me, I always look at it as like, what is this telling me to do? Or what is this trying to get me to do? And using that as a perspective. So I think it comes down to, if you got to have more of an open mind and look at different perspectives. So as soon as I'm faced with a challenge, the first thing I try and do is see a different perspective of it that I'm currently feeling, because I know that we have a 0.001, I believe it's 0.001 of a second that from a thought and emotion become linked. I know that you can train your brain to get in between that and put your foot in the door between the thought and the emotion that arises. So I've been doing a lot of building on that to be able to get my foot in that door quicker over time. I know that's just a part of the journey of life, and it is doable. I can talk on how you can do that in a second as well.
Yeah, sure.
But I believe that getting a new perspective on every challenge that comes into your life and understand it deeply, because once you're doing that, you're getting out your own head and you're not going to be in a reactional state. And that is what's helped me a lot through overcoming adversity, because now I know that no matter what happens in my life, I can put my foot in that door, think of it outside the box. And if I'm not emotionally affected by it, then it's not a problem.
Can you speak into that of, I guess, how to be less triggered, how to be less reactive, and how to, I guess, put your foot in the door, as you said? How can someone get better at, I guess, being less reactive to things?
The one way that I've trained myself and the one way that I've worked with people with is to be able to become the watcher and observer of your mind. So when I tell people to do meditation, you can do many forms of meditation, but the one I recommend to people to overcome thoughts and be able to work through emotions and get your foot in that door is to become the observer of your mind. So you want to sit back and pretend you're watching your thoughts like a movie. If you practice this, like maybe 2 10-minute sessions a day or 2 20-minute sessions a day, depending on how much time you got. If you sit back and continuously watch your thoughts like a movie, you learn like the art of detachment, and you're not getting emotionally attached to the thoughts that arise. And you're going to get, well, we have 70,000 thoughts today. You're going to get some that are uncomfortable, that are going to come up, but you've got to sit through them and keep watching them, let them play out and let them pass. Because if we don't give our thoughts a reason to pass, then we give them a reason to stay. So we've got to be able to let them pass. So then when when adversity and problems come in your life, then you have that skill to be able to observe and step back and watch it from a different perspective. And then you're able to let things flow and pass through in terms of emotions.
Could you give us a bit of an insight into the inner dialogue? Because it's like you're always unconsciously asking yourself questions or focusing on certain things, or you've got perspectives, the word that you used earlier. So when, say after this podcast, shit hits the fan and the old Ryan would get super triggered at it and super reactive to it. You're taking a breather, you're observing your thoughts, but is there a bit of dialogue going in? Are you asking yourself certain questions to see a different perspective? I guess, and the reason I'm asking is to give people that are listening some real strategic things that they can do. So when whoever's listening to this, the next time you get triggered, which will probably be today or tomorrow, is something that they can do in their internal sort of thinking to see a different perspective, to be less triggered, to be less reactive. Can you give us a bit of an insight to under the hood of what's going on with you?
Yeah, so the initial way to do it is that I do it is 4-6-9 breathing. So straight away I get out of that parasympathetic fight, flight, or freeze and calm down my nervous system, or slow down my heart rate, lower my blood pressure, get from being reactive to responsive. That's the first thing that I do, is get from that state by doing the breath work. Then after that, it's kind of just more so just being able to tell myself just to observe. That's what I literally do. It's the 4-6-9 breathing, because you just got to get out of that triggered state, initial triggered state, which is just your nervous system getting jacked up and your heart rate speeding up and your blood pressure getting high and you're getting stressed and overwhelmed and your thoughts are racing. But once you just calm all that down through breathing, you're then able to slow down your thoughts as well. And then you can start thinking more rationally. So start with the 4-6-9 breathing and just start focusing on your 5 senses, and then help yourself get out of your head and just give yourself like reaffirming things that you can tell yourself that are going to help you get calm as well. For me, I just say like, I'm fine, I'm present. That's what I say. I just say I'm present, because when I say I'm present, I'm getting out of my head and becoming more focused in the moment, rather than getting fixated on the past, getting fixated on thought or whatever it may be. So I'd say it's finding a mantra that is calming for you, because I believe it would be different for everyone. Then implement that with some 4-6-9 breathing.
Can you go into the senses a bit? I like that point. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So with your senses, I usually use my hands or my face or my feet. So what I do is I focus on what I can feel. So if my hands are on my legs right now, I can feel the hairs on my legs. I can feel my skin. Now focus on like the little sensors that I can feel. Maybe I can feel like one certain hair, or maybe I can feel a handful, or maybe with my feet, I can feel them touching the floor. My okay, which part of my foot is on the floor, which part is arch, which part is this, and become really focused on my body and very present within my body as well. And once I'm doing that, I'm also unclenching my jaw, unclenching my hands, relaxing my shoulders, and just becoming very relaxed and focused on my body. Because once you start getting very present and focused on your body, you realize how quickly you actually get out of your head.
Does this tie into, you haven't even used this word, but anxiety comes to mind when you're using this stuff? Because I would assume that would help people relax, not so tight, breathe, be present,
Yeah.
use your senses. Has that been, I'm not sure if you've experienced anxiety or it's affected you, or maybe clients you've had, but for anyone with it or that experiences it, is this similar tools that someone like that could use?
Yeah, for sure. And let me explain, like, so people can relate a bit as well. Like with anxiety, like I had anxiety that bad when my friend would come over and I'd be in my room shaking from panic attacks. I would have anxiety attacks because I was having negative intrusive force that I couldn't control. And I'd be shaking from that as well. And this was like a couple of years after drug addiction as well.
Yeah.
So the way I do combat that, yeah, is through the 4-6-9 breathing and focusing on my five senses and just getting out of my head and becoming completely present. Because you just got to remember, when you are in that rather anxious, stressed, overwhelmed, burnt out, whatever it may be, you just got to remember what your body is doing and understanding the physiology of it. Like your heart rate speeding up, your blood pressure is rising, your parasympathetic nervous system is triggered. And what you got to do is just reverse engineer that and bring it all back down. And then your anxiety will also calm down with it.
I'm hearing a lot of trends around breath work, being present, and I guess detaching from the stimulus or the thoughts of what's going on in your head, of what you're building yourself up on. You're setting off your own fight or flight system and just learning to be present. So really awesome, really refreshing, man. I'd like to dive into inner healing. I don't know what comes to mind when you hear that first. Let's just go with that. So when I say inner healing, what is that? What comes to mind for you?
Inner healing for me is just what I've been programmed to feel in terms of my childhood. So whatever I was programmed as a child is what something I've got to heal through. So that's kind of what inner healing is to me. It's just more so of what I'm programmed to feel and be like in terms of reactions in life and the emotions that I feel or maybe experiences that I've had, and just healing through those events in my life to then overcome and become something that I want to become, and program my mind to become something that I want to feel or someone that I'm trying to become in the future.
And does that play a role with what the type of work that you do, like inner healing work? Is that, I guess, a part of what you do, or is it not so much?
Not so much with the inner healing. I'm also focused on like mindset and helping people with more so of like the programming of their mind. The inner healing stuff is something that I haven't pushed towards so the most because I'm not, let's just say, the most expert of like inner healing per se.
Yep.
So my work's more so of like mindset, overcoming things like depression, anxiety, even though that could be linked in with inner healing as well, in a sense, depending on where it's being linked to.
Yeah.
So you probably could say it is, but I don't really call it inner healing myself.
Cool, man. Well, let's dive into your work. So tell me, I'm a potential client of you, or someone that's coming to you for help mentally, emotionally, spiritually, etc. What is the type of work that you do with people, and if you could even give some some practical implementations for people listening to this? How do you help people? What do you do with them, and how do you get the results that you get?
So the first thing I do, I always jump on a call with them because I want to completely understand what they're going through, what they're experiencing, what their perspective is, and how their thought patterns work. So I like just to completely brain dump on my own piece of paper from basically interviewing them about their life and what they're going through. Then what I do is I sit back for about a couple of days and I just break down every bit of information, how to overcome this, but then overcoming this or bringing this challenge. I break it down so many steps, like I fill books with it. And then I usually jump back on another call with them. And then I just work back through them, all the challenges that they are having that they've presented to me. Then also trying to identify what they can be linked to in the past as well. Sorry, can you hear my dogs barking?
No, we're good.
All right, cool. Yeah, then I also see where other things could be pieced to, where other things can be linked to. And that helps me just break down more questioning to get to the root of why they have certain issues or challenges in their life. So for me, it's just identifying whatever challenge they have. Then I just go to work and I hustle to help them find a way and help them overcome that challenge.
And what's kind of the common challenges that you are presented with the people that come to you? What's kind of the main ones that show up for you through clients?
In terms of like thing, it'd be depression and anxiety, definitely. A lot of mental health in that sense. So I get a lot of people who say, I've had this experience, I'm feeling depressed and I don't know how to overcome it. Or someone says, I'm always in this reactive state. I'm very angry, I'm anxious, or I'm overwhelmed in this state and I can't overcome it. Or some of them is like someone's had like a family breakdown, or they've had split up with their partner and there's lacking of purpose and they don't know what to do next. So I think a lot of it is guidance as well of helping them overcome depression, anxiety.
Mm. How has mentors and coaches played a part for you in becoming the man that you are, coming from where you've come from? How has that played a role with you?
Yeah, it's played a huge part for me because, like I said before, like I grew up with like no family really. So the idea of getting a mentor at the start was a bit daunting because I was like, I've came this far myself. Maybe I should just stick to myself. But then it's also getting out of that mindset of you need to grow, you need to be around people that have achieved things that you want to attain. Then once I start getting around those people and just the accountability and the level they can push you to is exceptional. Like knowing that even if it is a time in my life where I bullshit myself, they're not going to bullshit me. And that's what you need in life. And I think that's very important in terms of growth. You need someone that's going to call you out no matter how you feel about what they say. As long as it comes from a good heart and good intention, it's a very powerful thing. And I always recommend the people to find a mentor in life that has achieved something or has something that you want to attain.
Powerful, man. I can absolutely agree as well. What would you be your 5 steps? So if someone's listening right now and they want to improve their mental health, whether it's depression, anxiety, being super triggered, really angry, they've got a lot of things they haven't let go of, or just things affecting them mentally, what would be your top 5 steps for that person to start taking action? If they didn't have the opportunity to reach out to you and work with you, what would you tell those people?
So the 5 would be brain dump, get everything out your head and understand where it's coming from and why it is, and just different thought patterns. Completely understand yourself. Like we can understand the people around us, or we believe we have an understanding of the people around us, but we don't have an understanding of ourselves and how we work, how we operate, and why we operate that way. So I believe having the brain dump just to understand yourself more and build that deeper relationship with you. Next one would definitely be breath work. So learning breathing, because breathing can help with things with depression and anxiety, especially anxiety as well, because it helps you get out of that stress state, anxiousness, fear, etc. Next one is definitely meditation. Meditation helps you get out of your head, see things from a different perspective, and bring more calm. And I also believe it helps with depression as well.
Beautiful.
The next one would be guided affirmations. So being able to program your subconscious mind to attain beliefs that you want. And then the 5th one is definitely exercise. Get into a gym, get into running, get into yoga, whatever it is that moves your body. Find a way to move your body every single day, and you'll feel fucking awesome.
Man, powerful. Just like every question, just sharp on the money every time. I guess, brother, if you only had one message you could leave for the world, so say this is your last sentence the world's going to hear from you, what would you want that message to be?
It would be don't give up, because 2 million people a year have suicide ideation. And it's a lot of people. That's in Australia alone. There's only 26 million people in Australia, and 2 million people a year have suicide ideation. I believe it's 8 people a day kill themselves in Australia. I think it's 7 are men or 6 are men. And the numbers is just, the numbers are so high, even though there is so much awareness, even though social media is out there and there's a lot of coaches, a lot of people pushing mental health, the numbers are still so high. And my message would be to anyone listening is just don't give up. Just tell yourself every single day, I've got to live till tomorrow. Then tomorrow comes, tell yourself, I've got to live till tomorrow. And tell yourself that every single day. And I guarantee you will find your place in this world. So if anyone's listening, and this is my final message, it's just please don't give up and trust that life will work in your favor.
That's beautiful, man. And obviously knowing your story, man, I'm sure that's close to your heart as well. So I'm sure you told yourself those very words at some point, to be honest.
Oh, definitely, 100%.
Beautiful, man. Man, if someone wanted to reach out to you, someone wanted to connect with you, someone wanted to do business with you, or just say thank you to you, what's the best way they can find you?
Like I'm on all social medias, but the one I'm most active on would definitely be Instagram. So just jump on my Instagram at mental health experience, and then you'll see a handsome photo of me in the DP. And
Epic, man.
then, yeah, just shoot us a DM through Instagram, and then yeah, I'll be more than happy to connect with anyone.
Beautiful, man. Man, all of my questions today, you've come back with absolute fire. There's probably, I don't know how many questions I asked, but there's at least 10, 15 absolute gold nuggets here where people can use them right away. They can implement it into their life. They can start with the brain dumping. I call it journaling, but brain dumping, the breath work, the meditation, the gym, the exercise, the getting around mentors, coaches, to everything else that you've said today, man. So it's been absolutely valuable. Your story is fucking amazing, man. Like you can make a movie on that shit, man. You've got a beautiful story, man. I'm sure there was some dark moments there, but man, it's inspiring where you are now, man. Thank you for your time, bro. And I look forward to connecting with you again.
Thanks for having me, brother.